Okay, we'll do mic check on this one.
This one.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Afternoon. My name is Unity Dow. Afternoon. My name is Ian
Yes.
Prosper. And I do believe that I'm prospering one day.
Yes.
It's unclear when,
But it will happen.
but it will happen. We know for sure. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to Things That Matter,
Yes.
a show that explores and examines and discusses issues close to our lives, close to our hearts. Today's show is themed
Wills and power of attorney.
okay.
All right. So I don't mind jumping in there.
All right.
All right. Just be careful with the camera because it's gonna pick you up as well. So you can sit there if you
Good afternoon and welcome
and get a
to
chance.
Things
there.
That Matter, a show that
Should I send the link to the group or?
No, it's our group. Yes, our
Yeah.
group. Yes, our WhatsApp group. That things that matter group. Yes, yes.
So how do we start? We start the normal way?
They'll give us a clue. I mean a cue, and then we're ready to
Well, let's before they do that, let's make sure how we're going to do that.
go. Okay.
Like,
Yes.
Can you do this for a living? You see, I tell you when people say, they look at magazines
Yes.
and they see these ultra thin women,
Yeah.
they want to look at them,
Yeah.
and I said they do that for a living.
For a
Okay,
living,
I'm a
yeah.
lawyer primarily, and I do that part time. They can be thin and be a lawyer. You see, let's establish your job is to do this, so you know what we're doing. Talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you could do the intro there and say, welcome once again to Things That Matter. My name is Unity Da,
Mhm.
and today I also have a special co-host, and then
And then you introduce yourself.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then I would say, okay, so today what are we talking about?
Mhm.
And then you will say, today we will learn about wills and power of attorney.
Mhm.
So and then I would just say, okay, let's start with wills,
Mhm.
and then the first question I will ask is probably
What is a will?
what is a will? Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
And
Then
then
it's- mhm.
it just unfolds from
Mhm.
there on and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Okay.
Can I write a will at home? Do I need to go to a lawyer?
Yes.
What makes a will valid?
And also the other big question I have is, do you buy? I don't want to ask these things outside the show because I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
they'll make it much more interesting if
Mhm.
I ask them on the show. Because then I'm also coming in from a
Mm-hmm.
um, viewer or audience,
Yeah,
you
suspect.
know,
Mm-hmm.
perspective. But if I'm now more informed before I ask the questions, I might tend to
Okay, that's fine.
override the idea of
Okay.
the unknown, basically. So,
Okay.
um, Mr. Kupano,
Yes, sir.
are you testing your levels there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, can you also record here on Audacity because I have that clean sound?
Yes,
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Am
it.
I close enough to the mic? Is that okay?
Yeah,
Can you see me above the mic? Barely.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
We had a bit of a challenge on the last show because the levels were a little bit because
Little heads.
they were turning the head and the
Mhm.
microphone was here. But I managed
Okay.
to put them up high a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. The what?
The phone's on silent.
Yes, my phone is on silent. Yeah.
Mhm. Mine is always on silent, but it may decide to scream today.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? I got how it went. It's off. It's off. Okay, it's fine.
I know.
We're 2 minutes to 1 o'clock. continuous live feed.
So you, when they come in, you're going to be asked, how will I know the questions? Because I don't have a screen.
Okay. Let's test. So usually the sound of the live feed comes through here, so we'll be able to hear them.
Hear the question.
Yes. If I ask Mr. Eddie to join. Did he join? No.
No.
Check here. You ready? What's the temporary channel code, Mr. Kumara? This one. Okay, cool. Let's see if Mr. Eddie is joining us. Has anybody joined in the backstage? No one yet. Okay, but we can start.
We can start enjoying it.
Yes. What do you think? What do you think? Are we good now? Okay. 1 o'clock. Let's start. You can remove the. Is it framed properly? What do you need? All right. All right. We may take over.
Okay. Welcome once again to Things That Matter, a show that explores, examines, and discusses issues that are close to our hearts and our lives. Brought to you by
TDA Teleradio.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I always enjoy being on your show, you know. I think it's a wonderful show. You always learn one thing or two, if not plenty.
Is that so?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's always a pleasure to be on your show as ENP, as myself, not the crazy loud person every morning, Mondays to Thursday. Okay, so Dr. Unitedal, I would try to not to use the titles as you like us not to.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
today we are talking wills and power of attorney.
That's correct.
What is a will?
Okay. What is a will?
Yes.
The best way to describe a will is your last information, your last instructions about what you want your property, um, what you want your
Yeah.
to be used for.
Okay.
How to who should get your property in short.
Okay.
Okay. Basically, it's often in the form of a written note. It has to be written in terms of the law.
All right.
Basically, you're saying this is how I want my property to be distributed. That's what a will is.
Uh, do you buy a specific document or you can just get a piece of paper, write? I don't know. How does a standard will look like? Because I've
Okay.
never written one. So
Okay. Well, I hope that after this you will
I
be
will.
motivated to
I
do something
will.
about that.
Yeah.
Because we'll discuss why in a little while. But
Okay.
basically, yes, you can get from the internet
Mm.
standard wills. You can go to a lawyer, to help you write your will. But what you need to understand is that also you can write one at home, but you have to be very careful because there are certain features that makes a will valid.
Yes.
Okay, it has to be very clear. Who you say and how you say your property should be distributed.
Mm.
It has to have at least two witnesses to it.
Okay.
Okay, so so that's why it's best to
Yeah.
get help.
All right. So I'm just sitting here thinking, where does one learn how to write a will? I mean, we don't learn this in school. So,
Most people actually know. It's just that they may not call it a will. They will say, "I want my property. I want this house to go to so and so. I want this house to go to so and so." Okay,
uh-huh.
and I want my farm to go to so and so. So that's a will.
Yes.
But for it to be valid, for it to be used later, to actually effect your instructions, it
Yes.
has to be reduced in writing.
Okay.
So I would really say, I know you may think, oh, it's expensive to go to your lawyer. If you have education, tertiary education, you can look it up on the net and use, and use a standard will.
Okay.
But also, if you have access to your lawyer, it shouldn't be that expensive. It shouldn't cost you more than 2,500 to actually write a will.
Yes.
So, but it's worth doing it, I would say.
Who keeps the will?
Um, it's up to you.
Okay.
Ideally, you can file one with the master of the High Court.
All right.
Okay, but give a copy to a trusted person. Put a copy in a safe or a place that is usually private. A place where those who are behind, you leave behind, will able to find easily.
Yes.
Of course, if you use the lawyer, there'll be a copy with the lawyer.
Yes.
But it's the best thing is that safekeeping of a will is always tricky because people think if that one person I did not leave anything to finds out,
Yes.
they're going to rip it to bits or whatever. So but just it's yeah. I think the other thing that I need to mention, even as we start, is it's important that when somebody passes away, you register their death with the master
Mm.
of the High Court. Every death should be registered because only then can you find out is there a will or no will.
Oh, yes.
You understand? Some people say, oh, they don't own much, so I'm not going to register the estate. No, most people have something. Even if just that one team,
Yes.
that one house, that one table. It really brings certainty.
Yes.
If people who you leave behind know what you say should be done with your property.
Mm.
Yes.
Can people forge wills? Because you're not there to defend yourself anymore. You're dead. So can somebody find it and forge it?
Well, you need three people to do it, or
Okay.
at least or that person should forge two other signatures
Oh, yes. There's
because
that. Yeah.
a will has to be signed or witnessed by two people
Yes.
who must be older than 14 years old and who must state that they saw you sign the will.
Yes.
So for you to forge it, you're going to have to involve two other people who are willing to lie with you.
Yeah. Okay. So in this case, the two things I've learned so far, always leave the will where it can be accessed by people who are still
Mhm.
alive.
Mhm.
Otherwise, there's no point, is it? If you
Yes.
put it in a safe and then nobody has got the access to the safe.
Mhm.
You can leave it to a lawyer. In this case, are we saying a lawyer is an individual, or it can also be a lawyer firm in the sense like a law firm, basically?
That's correct. A
Yes.
law firm,
Yes.
it would be, and also in a will, often you say who is going to be in charge of distributing your account.
Okay.
So that person needs to be notified as soon as possible
Yes.
that you have the power to oversee this estate, and therefore it's important that it will be access. And also, I mean, once you have passed away, even if you hid things, people go through your things,
Yes.
isn't it? I mean, they find your uang, they find your driver's license, so
Yeah.
because they're dealing with your aftermath,
Yes.
so to speak. So that's where they will find your will.
Say, uh, an interesting, funny question just hit my mind now.
Uh-huh.
You had a lawyer who is keeping your will, and then they die,
Hmm.
because lawyers are people, they also die, don't they? What happens then, you know?
Okay. The will doesn't die with them.
Okay.
If you actually signed a will before the lawyer, there will be a copy at the
Yes.
masters.
Masters, yes.
Mhm. And also, you can always search if you think your dear departed may have left a will. You can
Yes.
do a will search at the master's office.
All right. All right, cool. So if you are joining the conversation, the number is plus 267 75 341 347. You can send us a video with questions you would like to ask relating to wills. If you don't have a will, how are you going to start one, and how do you go about it? Or if you've got any other questions relating to the subject matter that we're discussing now on things that matter with Dr. Unitedal, please do send us your video questions. The number is plus 267 75 341 and 347. Okay, question. I'm sorry to personalize this. How many wills have you written in your lifetime?
Oh. I don't know, probably more than 20. You mean like for other people as a lawyer or my own will?
Let's say for yourself, because I'm sure they change based on your
Oh, I
interest,
see.
on how
Okay,
the
that's
behavior of the other ones.
okay. So you mean my will?
Yes,
Do I have a will,
yes,
and how often? That's a very good question because I think a well-written will
yes.
should not need to be changed too many times.
All right.
It shouldn't be, I'll tell you what. I mean, first of all,
Yes,
let me say, why do you write a will in the first place? You write a will because you love the people who are going to be, you're leaving behind, and you don't want them to fight.
yes,
Or if they fight, you want them to have a very clear instructions as to what they are fighting for and how they should be fighting. Okay, so
yes,
it's important because also it's one document that your departed can take very quickly to the bank,
yes,
to the high court, to
yes,
wherever, without having to go to the chief to write a letter to say, Kana Lerato was the daughter of so and so. I know. So it just really cuts all the red tape. But sometimes people say, I've got only one daughter, I've got only one
ah,
child, I don't need a will. You still need a will because they need a definitive document to work with, quick and clear. But you're asking me, I have one will,
yes,
and that was my second will. You
yes.
see, and a well-written will need not change.
Mm,
I think one of the things that people, it's sometimes you may have to change it, but generally, let's see what you have 30 years, 35 years old
yes,
with two children, married, you don't know whether you're going to have any more children or not. You have to frame a will so that even the unborn children will be provided for without
all
saying, I've
right.
got two children, Lerato and, Maxine,
Mm,
I want, so you understand, a well
yes,
written, and also be careful not to say how so and so will go to so and so and house in France I will go to another person because you may not have that house at time. You think you are sharing equally at the time.
all right.
So
Okay. Um, there's something we discussed just before we went on air. Uh, Different countries, different laws.
that's all right.
So specifically in Botswana, what are the laws that govern wills here in Botswana?
Very good question.
Yeah.
And if you don't leave a will, you are placing in Botswana, if you're in
Yes.
Botswana, you are placing your loved ones in a very, very difficult position
Uh-huh.
because the question is going to be what law applies.
Yes.
Is it customary law or is it English common law?
Yes.
Okay, totally different rules. And some of the members of the family, the youngest boy will say, "Oh, it's customary law. It's customary law, and I must have the house."
Yeah.
because you understand,
Yes.
and the the other daughter will say, no, 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 no. The middle daughter said, that's not fair. It's, English common law. My parents lived in Francistown. They lived, a modern life, and therefore it's in terms of English common law. Therefore, each one of us gets everything equally.
Yes.
You understand? So, if you don't write a will in this country, you are creating problems for your heirs.
Uh-huh. And you spoke of the first child gets something different from the last child. If it's a girl, it's a different story. Just elaborate on that.
Okay, and I'm going to be talking about really probably south of debate to a large extent. I don't know
Okay.
too much about the laws of customary law rules. I know
Okay.
that's position in Botswana, in Boramotswa, in Botlokwe, in Jalo Jalo.
Yeah.
That in terms of customary law, the youngest male gets the homestead,
Basically, they get the piece of
the,
the land.
no, the house,
The house.
the main
Okay.
house. I got
Yes.
okay. Go Muchudi, go Ramotswa, go Guy. I
Uh-huh.
got they get the youngest male. The youngest female gets the plowing field, and then
Uh-huh.
in terms of customary law.
Okay.
And then the oldest male gets the moraga, the cattle post. Not all the cattle post.
Okay.
And then the cattle will be distributed amongst all the children.
Let's say there are no cattle at the cattle post. It's just a post.
Yeah, he gets a post because it used to be an important place.
Yes.
It is an important place in terms of the family, because that's where you will water your cattle if you have cattle. So again, it just shows you how sometimes lifestyles change,
Yes.
economies, types of economies change. The kind of economy that would have made that reasonable
Yes.
does not exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Until
All right, so we're receiving people their videos or their questions. Please do send. The number is +267 75341347. If you just joined, this is things that matter with Doctor. You need to dial. Do we have anyone who's joining us right now backstage at all? No one yet, but we do have and before I close the segment on Wales, I had a couple of questions that came in. Let me see if I can share with you. The first question that came in, it says, if I'm unmarried, who will inherit um, my estate if I don't have a will? If I don't leave a will and I'm unmarried, what happens then?
okay, you may be unmarried, but you may have children.
Yes.
Okay, so your children will get. So I often describe, if you don't leave a will,
Yes.
I often describe as inheritance as almost like a cross.
Yes.
Okay, your estate goes down to your children.
All
If you have
right.
no children, goes up to your parents. If
Yes.
you have no parents, it goes down across to your siblings.
Yes.
So if you leave children, we have no will, all your property will go to the
Yes.
children. If you have no children but you've got living parents, the
Yes.
whole estate will go to your parents. If you've got no children and no parents, it will be shared equally amongst your siblings.
Uh-huh.
You understand?
So basically, if I don't have kids,
Hmm.
my brother and my sister will then uh, automatically inherit.
If you don't have parents.
If I don't have parents, yes.
So you go one, two, three
All right. So the priority, sort of the pyramid says my parents first
before your siblings.
before my siblings.
Your children first, then your parents, then your siblings.
All right. Um,
If you
oh,
don't have a will.
yes. So talking about wills, I don't know. There's a tradition where you are married and then the husband passes away, and then after in different countries, father your will. I'm sorry. I know before we go to a break, let me find out if that's the when you have.
In terms of difference of marriage, next process, you have a male, female. It's not part of the will. I wouldn't say that. The people discussion that you can have is also very around to talk about originally thought, why it made sense in and may not necessarily make sense in modern context. Um, let me before we close this particular issue of Wales,
Okay.
to say, often people ask, can I disinherit my children?
Yes.
Because and the answer is yes. But
Is that the same way of saying I am withdrawing my inheritance or
yeah,
my will?
no, no.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you can give your money to the Catholic Church, everything,
Okay. Yes.
and leave zero to your children.
Yes.
You can, give your estate to a bird sanctuary or an elephant sanctuary
Uh huh.
without giving it to your children. I'm not saying do it. I'm just telling you that you can,
All
because
right.
okay, you cannot take away maintenance from your children.
Okay.
You understand?
I
So
get it.
if for example, for young children, before your estate is distributed, they will get maintenance. That's not inheritance.
All
That's
right.
maintenance, because you have an obligation to maintain them until they are 21.
Uh huh.
Okay, but you have no obligation to leave them property
Wow.
if they are self-supporting.
Okay. So in this case, actually, there's someone who's asking a question. I'm going to allow them to ask the question. It's really related to what you're saying now. Let me see if I can connect. Mr. Cops, can you connect Mr. Eddie? He's got a similar question to what we just got into now. Let's see if we can pick him up. Good afternoon. Uh,
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you very much. Can you hear us
Good. Yes,
clear
I
there?
can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
All right. Can you?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. So
Okay,
you have a
awesome.
question. We're discussing wills right now.
Okay.
What is your question?
Yeah. Okay. Having been in so many countries and looking to naturalize and become Botswana, I'm an only son, but my parents are both from the DRC. So, in case anything happens to them, legally, what happens? Do I apply the law of my naturalized nation, or do I have to go back to the DRC and apply the law that's over there? That's the first question. And then a close friend of mine is she's pretty much in the same predicament. She's an only daughter. Her dad passed away some years ago, and her mom passed away last year. And she's out in the U.S. All the mother's property is scattered, either here in Botswana, in South Africa, and in the DRC. And she's having trouble with her mother's side of the family in terms of the legitimacy of the will that the mom left, which was, I believe, it was done in the U.S. So I just wanted to find out what advice you might have for a case like that as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much. Let me deal with the second question first. Um, if she is inheriting the property in terms of a will, that shouldn't be a problem, because there must be an executor of the estate who must follow the instructions of the will.
Uh-huh.
So it doesn't matter whether the extended family they have any ideas about what they think they're entitled to. Uh, the executor must follow the instructions, of the will. If they say the mother died without a will and she's the only child, once again she's the sole heir to that estate,
Mhm.
and therefore if anybody's bothering her, she should um, register the death with the
Yes.
master, so that the issue can be resolved.
Hmm.
But basically she is the sole heir of that estate.
Okay. Doesn't that create some form of safety and security issue when things like that happen? Because is there like um, a protection service to such things? I mean, they do that with people who win lotto and
Yeah,
lottery and
yeah.
stuff like that.
People start becoming having more friends. I mean,
Yeah.
I often say, okay, that you are not an island, okay.
Uh,
You may have inherited all this property and it's only yours, okay.
yes.
If you want to continue to be happy within a family, I
Yes.
think it just makes sense also to engage your extended family in terms of, why do they want this? I mean, like, I find that often the fights are because people feel like we are part of the family before you had property.
Uh,
Now you want to check us out. So there has to be a happy medium there. Actually, that actually loops to another question that I thought, another issue related.
okay.
Remember earlier on I said that you are at liberty to leave your property to anybody. It
Yes.
means that you can actually give all property to one child
All right.
and disinherit another. You know, you have the power to do that.
Mm,
Is it wise to do that? I don't think so. Because often parents say, "Oh, he wasn't taking care of me. He was
mm,
never here. I'm not giving him anything."
mm.
Remember, we are leaving loved ones.
Yes.
So the one child that you love,
Mm,
the one you give everything, is going to have a very rough life.
yes.
So in deciding how to divide your property, try to be as fair as possible and
Yes.
try not to do the fight between you and your children to
Mm,
be inherited by the one you think you favor. That's
all right.
advice. Now the issue of I come from another country, I'm in Botswana, what
Mm,
law applies? That's a very good question. You can write in your will what law should apply to the distribution of your estate.
all right.
So you can say Botswana law shall apply, okay, because you are here, which means that it's, let's say maybe you have a house in Zambia.
Mm,
When you say Botswana law shall apply, you are saying Botswana law will apply in interpreting, you know, how that estate in Zambia should be distributed.
yes.
It's called a conflict of law situation,
All right.
and it's resolved by you deciding what law will apply.
Mhm.
Okay, it may well be in Zambia or in DRC, whatever. The law says if it comes to fixed property, the law of the land will apply.
All right.
You understand? So yeah.
So talking about other countries, I think we just got a video question that's just come in. I think it's from Zimbabwe. Do you have the video ready for us? Let's see if we
We
can
have a
have the
question
video.
here, and it says, "How much should I expect to pay a lawyer to prepare for them to prepare a power of attorney?" And then question number 2 says, "My mother passed away, and she left me everything, but her family wants to take."
The question, can you play the question there? Can you play the question for us? We can't pick up the question. All right. You're listening to TDA Tele Radio on Things That Matter with Dr. Bell, and I'm here to
How
co-anchor with her as we talk things about will and things that have to do with the power of attorney soon after the break. Let's see if we can get the video again.
We have a question
All right,
here,
Miss.
and it says, "How much should I expect to pay a lawyer to prepare for them to prepare a power of attorney?" And then question number 2 says, "My mother passed away, and she left me everything, but her family wants to take everything that she left me. What should I do?"
All right. So you got the questions.
Yes, I did.
All right.
Okay. How much you should expect to pay a lawyer? It really should not be any more than 2,500 unless you got really, complicated estate.
Mm,
And in terms of, again, I advise every adult person to leave a will so that that particular child who you leave or children that you leave, is not inconvenienced by having to prove that they are the only children,
yes.
prove that they're your children, prove that there are no other children.
Yes.
It just makes sense. And the other thing, one of the reasons why you should do that, we live very complicated lives, especially in African situations.
Yes.
I'll give you a very simple example. Do you have time? Can we
Yes.
discuss?
Yeah. That we
Yeah.
can do that before we go to a break. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me give you a very simple example. You're husband and wife.
Mm,
You've got two children. And once they grow up, they become more independent, they're 16, 18, you decide to take a cousin's child
yes.
to bring them into the home. Okay. And you raise them.
Yeah.
Your relationship with the child, your cousin is that I'm good, I have it's a room, I've got, I'm fairly well off. I can take care of your child,
Mm,
through school. Okay. And then you pass away. The law may decide that you had actually adopted that child.
mm,
Maybe that was not your intention.
yes.
Your intention was to offer them maintenance during your lifetime.
Yes.
The court may say, or the master of the high court may say, you sent the child to TDA,
Mm,
and therefore you wanted them to have private education.
yes.
And therefore, before we give your children anything, we're going to calculate what is the maintenance of the child until they finish high school.
Mm,
And therefore, once we carve out that from the estate, only the remainder can be shared by your two children because that's remember you are obligated to pay maintenance
Yes.
to your children and those people that you demonstrated to the world that you want to actually maintain.
Mm.
So clearly you indicate that you want to maintain this child. The fact that you're dead, that's your estate still has property.
Yes.
And therefore you may find that all your inheritance or substantial amount of your inheritance goes to supporting a child that you thought you were going to be holding or taking care of only temporarily.
Mm.
So it's important to understand that you may not have said, I adopt my cousin's child.
All right.
Mhm.
So that's quite interesting because now the first thing that came into mind when you were talking about that, which is going to lead into our next discussion, which is power of attorney. I'm young, I'm under 18 or under 21, depending on depending on the laws that apply in the country you are in. And my father has left everything to me, but uh, at the time of his death, they were going through difficult challenges between
Mhm.
him and my mother. And now everything has been left to me. Does the mother, or say my mother, have power over me, over the will that has been left? Or who controls the inheritance if I'm underage when my mother is still alive? How does that work? Is there a thing called the power of attorney? Or is that something you're going to break it down for us when we come back from
Okay.
the
We're
break?
going break. Let's go on break.
Let's go on a break. Okay, we're going to come back with more. Welcome back to TDA Techno Radio. On the show, it is Things That Matter with Dr. Unit Dow. And just before the break, we were talking if a child has been left everything by the father and the mother is still alive and they're having challenges before the untimely death, what happens to the inheritance? And legally, what are the processes in place to protect that inheritance that's been left to the child?
Wow, a very big question. I mean, first of all, if a child is under 18
Yes.
and they have any property, the guardian, the legal guardian, is going to be the one who is going to hold that property on that child's behalf until they gain majority. So if the legal guardian is your mother, and it is going to be your mother, your living parent,
Mm.
then that um, mother will be the one who's in charge of that inheritance. But let me complicate it for you, because the one you said is no complication at all.
Yeah.
You have um, two people
Yes.
married, divorced. Okay, the mother, is the guardian of the children,
Mm.
maybe giving custody and guardianship of the children, and she gets half of the property after divorce,
Yes.
her house, her money, whatever, and the children. Then she dies. Who comes and collects, the children? Of course, is the other parent.
Yes.
And all the property, really that belong to the,
To the mother now.
because now he is now in charge. He's now the guardian
Yeah.
of the children.
So okay. So the long gone father has now come back.
Yeah. Yeah, who's going to reverse from that yard in the deceased deceased woman's car?
Uh,
It's him, even though it was granted to her, because now he's not holding for himself, he's holding for the children. And unless
uh,
she had left a will to say, the trustee,
mm,
in the event that I die when my children are still young,
mm.
I'm naming so and so as the trustee, okay,
All right.
of the estate on their behalf.
Okay. So
You can do that in a will. You can say,
Yeah.
in the event I die leaving children who are underage, the person besides the executor who's supposed to manage the estate,
Mm.
who's going to hold the property in trust until my children or my child is of age. It's important to do that.
All right. Um,
And then
yes, go ahead. Yeah.
another complicating question. These are really some of the reasons why you need to write a will.
Mm.
Let's say, for example, you were married and divorced. Okay, you marry again and got more children, and then you die.
Mm.
Okay, if there is no will, especially a joint will, I always advise um, couples to have a joint will.
Yes.
A joint will that says there will be no the a survivor of us will inherit the whole estate upon the first dying,
Uh,
and then upon the last dying, the property will be distributed equally upon on the children. You
mhm.
know why? Because if you don't have a joint will and Mr. X dies, leaving a child, with a former wife, okay,
Yes.
and got more children, that boy will come or that girl will come and say, "Can I have my father's estate?" Maybe there's only one house,
Yes.
because um, in terms of the law, so the house, I got you're married is a whole.
Yes.
The deceased owned half. The wife still owns the other half, the one who's alive.
Yes.
So the children, all children, including children from the former wife
Yes.
and the wife, now are entitled to half the estate. Maybe the only estate is a house. It means that it's potentially that house has to be sold
Uh,
so that these children, they could be even major because they could be self-sufficient.
mm.
They, in terms of the law, entitled to their child's share of their father's estate. You understand?
Yes.
So it's important to write a will to say when, especially if people say, "Oh, I have nothing. I've only one simo. I can't do a will."
Yes.
You sometimes it's because you have little that you must write a will.
I'm actually thinking now in my own personal case, let's say, there are things called, um, when you have shares in different entities, you have ownership of intellectual properties,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you have royalties that are always due at a
Mm-hmm.
given time.
Mm-hmm.
So those things you can add to your will, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we will take say I've got um, stake in Shell,
Mm-hmm.
let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Can I hand it over down to someone that I actually appoint in the will?
Yeah, your will, all property, whether it's real,
Yes.
or movable,
Yes.
corporeal, incorporeal, meaning real fixed things or things like shares and
Mm.
stock, you can leave to people. And I'm going to say once again that if you don't want to be changing your will every 5 years or every 2 years,
Mm.
because maybe you sell your shares, you say, "Oh, so I didn't give little Shima
Mm.
anything because I'd given them shares and then I sold them." Because remember, a will does not stop you from dealing with the property as its own.
Once you're still alive, yeah. So you can sell these things before you die, and then
Exactly.
one day they wake up, you're dead. They say, "Oh, there's a will."
And they said, a house in Ramos, or there's no house in Ramos.
Yeah.
But then you had said, maybe you said Shima will get the house in Ramos.
Yeah.
Agnes will have the house in Francistown. So it means only Agnes gets anything
Mm.
because you didn't change your will on time. The best thing, often, you are asking the question, how many wills if you talk about other people's wills,
Yeah.
more than 30, I'm sure, in my lifetime. The best will is when you say, um, okay, I leave my entire estate in equal undivided shares to the following people.
Mm.
Okay? It means everything. It means the chair, it means the spoon, it means the house, it means whatever. Equal undivided share. Okay?
Mm.
Provided that there might be distribution, okay?
Mm.
Where in terms of asset distribution or money, okay, as fairly as possible. So you are
Yes.
allowing them to say everything is yours.
Mm.
The executive can sit down and say, "Okay, we have 3 houses and 5 cars, whatever. We have whatever. So let's see how best. It's all
Yes.
yours. If you quarrel, I sell everything. I give you money.
Mm.
If you don't quarrel, maybe because you already live in Francistown. Maybe you should take the house, Francistown house, even though it's only 100,000 pula.
Mm.
You live in Gaborone, we'll give you the 200,000 pula, but you will get the money in the account, so we
Mhm.
can balance. So you give flexibility to the executor without because you can disinherit a child by failing to say that. And maybe you're in your 30s and you say, I leave my estate with my three children, Shimani, Shima, and Boiki. Then you have Agnes. So it's better to say, my living children and any other children I may have.
All right. You talked about money in the bank. That's always an interesting one.
Mhm.
Who has access to the money in the bank?
It's no different from any other property.
Mm,
When you are deceased, you have to look at the what the will says. The executor's job is to list all the property, including money.
mm.
Okay, it's got access. He can use the money in the bank to pay debts. Can
Okay.
use to you understand. So remember, basically that the executor represents you now.
What is the difference between executor and power of attorney?
Okay, let's okay. The power of attorney that we introduced at the beginning of the show is about the power of attorney in the event of disability.
All right.
Often people think of themselves and only I'm alive or dead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but they forget that they may be in between.
Oh yeah. So
You
the
understand?
power of attorney is in between.
Yes. For example, let's say for example, I get hit by a car. God forbid.
Mm.
Please God, I didn't wish that
Yes.
on myself.
Touch wood. No,
Okay,
you're
touch
not
wood.
good. Yes.
Okay, it's not happening.
Until
But
we make that billion. Yeah.
okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
And then I'm unable to act for myself.
Yes.
I'm not dead, but I cannot go to the bank to actually. I'm disabled. I cannot make decisions about myself.
Yes.
And maybe my husband wants to airlift me to Joanning or Francistown for medical attention.
Mm.
Or maybe they want to pay a debt that is due. They cannot do that without a power of attorney that I'm giving them to act on my behalf in the event that I'm disabled.
Yes.
And often you give each other this. So it often, at least my advice to couples,
Mm.
is a mutual power of attorney in the event of incapacity.
All right.
For example, if I'm incapacitated, and you have to prove it by, it'll be very clear.
Mm.
People say, "Oh, but I give them a power of attorney. Maybe they go to the bank and sign on by paper." No, the bank will have to show that you must come with a doctor's
Yes. No.
clear,
Yeah.
to say, "Look, I have to access this account, because the person is unable to deal with our own affairs."
Mm.
So it's a mutual power of attorney. You give it to each other. Because often we think, oh, okay, my account is my account, his
Yes.
account is my account, but it doesn't work that way because at the bank if you didn't give each other signing powers,
Mm.
you don't have signing powers in that account. Doesn't matter how many marriage certificates you come with,
Yeah.
stamped and stamped and stamped. Maybe you want to sell two cows from the farm, so you can take them to hospital. You can't if you don't have a power of attorney to sell that cow.
Yes.
So it's really, and maybe you want to even do their tax returns
Mm.
because you believe if they don't do them right now, there could be penalties. You can't unless you have a power of attorney to deal with these affairs. You understand? Maybe there's a check that's due
Mm.
that you need to go and collect. You can't. Maybe you're running a business together. The fact that running a business together doesn't mean necessarily we can sign into each other's personal accounts. So it's really something I often, because I've seen it happen.
Mm.
Of a client of mine who was like, my husband is at this particular hospital. He needs to be airlifted to Johannesburg. He has money in the account. I cannot access it. So what do you have to do? An agent,
Power of attorney.
no,
All
you
right.
can't. You can't
Yeah.
give your power of attorney. He's as unable to act. So you may
So
have,
no one else can't do a power of attorney appointment with
By themselves.
By themselves.
yeah. So we had to go to the High Court to urgently move an urgent application to say it's in the best interest of so and so for the wife to be able to access the account. You understand?
Wow.
So because otherwise you have no right, absolutely no right. So you can't go to the bank and say, "This is my husband. It's my husband."
Yeah.
No.
So
Because-
marriage certificates can't work. Business documents of incorporation can't work. The money can lie in the bank until there is that
Yeah.
order.
Mm.
From
Unless
the
if you,
court.
let's say,
Yeah.
for example, here we give a very good example. Let's say you own a bank, a company together, husband and wife. But in terms of your instructions, both of you must sign. Both
Yes.
must sign. Okay?
Yes.
For anything to move. And he's lying in the hospital, you are lying in the hospital, and he's
Yeah.
there.
Now
He,
you can't
he
process.
can't move because, the fact you've given the bank clear instructions that both of you must sign. So unless you have a power of attorney to sign on his behalf or her behalf,
Yes.
if he's
either way.
unable to sign, then you are stuck.
Just out of interest,
Mhm.
how does one acquire a power of attorney, and what is the process on doing that?
The best thing would be a lawyer.
Okay.
It shouldn't cost you more than 1,500. Really, it's a one pager. Just really explaining what powers are given to him, what powers are given to her, and if you are running a business together, it should be clear filed with your so that it's easy the
Yes.
day you need it, because it's this kind of thing that may never happen, so you may
Yes.
actually even forget it's there. But you must always have a set of documents that are really for urgent
Yes.
use.
Yes, that's true.
Mhm.
Um, who do you trust? Or I don't know if there's such a thing called trust when these things are
Mhm.
happening. um, can I trust my lawyer as or the person that I'm giving the power of attorney? Can they not steal my money because they've got access? But what do they need to prove um, that?
But you're not giving them the power.
Okay.
You're giving power to your husband or your wife.
Oh
It's a
yes.
mutual power of attorney between, unless you can give your lawyer power of attorney as well.
Oh
But
okay.
about power of attorney, the word attorney is used, like
Oh
as
yes,
an
I understand
agent.
it. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so you can give me, for example, power
Yeah.
of attorney to access your accounts in case of disability.
Yes.
But like I say, usually if you are in a business situation, you would want to give it to somebody who, if you're husband and wife,
Hmm.
your wife, your husband, even personally. I have a power of attorney, for example, with my husband.
Yeah.
Okay, in the event that he could not act for himself, I'll be able to access. In the
Yeah.
event I cannot act, so that's why I say it's best to be a mutual power of attorney in the
Hmm.
event of disability.
All right, so we got someone joining it. Is there someone joining in? Let's see if we can get them to join in. Hello, is anybody there? Oh, the person is gone. They just joined in just now. Okay, let's see if
Hmm.
they can carry on. Please join us. We are talking the power of attorney, and I'm with Dr. Unitida, and this is our show, Things That Matter. So we're talking trust, but also now the most important question I want to ask: can I cancel my power of attorney, and how does that work?
Exactly. First of all, the power of attorney um, is effective from after the date of signature, because
Okay.
only after that, you can withdraw at any time, you can
Mm,
cancel at any time, um, or you can give that power to somebody else.
yeah.
You know.
Okay, so we spoke of two figures in terms of costs, right? Um, where we said it might not cost you more than 2,500 puller,
Mhm.
that is going through to a lawyer, and power of attorney might cost you about 1.5. And
Mhm.
these things actually do matter, don't they?
I get that a lot.
And they will come in handy in cases when you're not there to protect those that you leave behind. All
Mhm.
right. Let's say, um, uh, in case of power of attorney, we both incapacitated at the
Mhm.
same time. Um, you know, the two partners are in a situation where they can't execute anything.
Mhm.
Who then takes care of that situation?
Mhm. A clever lawyer would never just appoint one person.
All right.
They will say, I got, and in the event that you're unable or unwilling to act,
Yes.
you know, give to other people. You understand. So it could
Hmm.
be your children, for example. Husband and wife would say, I give, Margaret the power of attorney to act for me, Margaret Joseph.
Yeah.
Okay, but then they will say, in the event we're unable to act, then our oldest child,
Uh-huh.
and there's something called with the power of substitution, that they
Yes.
can also give that power to somebody else. So somebody, you have to be smart enough to make sure that you plan for eventualities. Maybe you're both in the same car wreck.
All right. Yes. Because I would like to understand when it comes to, say, business setup, because this is quite interesting when business partnerships are like marriage,
Hmm.
isn't it? You have different directors who own different shares, and say the one who has the, let's say, majority stake in the company, do they have any power over you when you die to control your stake, or that is a different story?
That's a totally different ball game. We're talking about something else. We also talk about um, whether or not, in the event that one of the directors
Mm,
is unable to act, the other one can act.
yes,
Maybe governed by the constitution of the company.
yes.
Remember, shareholding. A share is property.
Mm,
Therefore, whether you are disabled or dead, you own that and goes to your heirs. which another maybe it may be an interesting topic for another day,
Yes.
because the extent to which we have small companies,
Yes.
and therefore, if you talk about a small company where two friends are shareholders,
Yes.
when one of them dies, therefore the position of director is vacant. What do? Because you're going to have his children marching into the office,
Yes.
wanting not only to sit on the board. Of course, they're entitled to shares, but they're not entitled to sit on the board.
Yes.
You
That's
understand?
another thing to learn. Yes.
Yeah, that's so we will have a special discussion about different ways in which we incorporate companies, and also advice, because in terms of from experience, what have I seen? What are the best models? What are the dangerous, the challenges? But we can.
We'll talk about that.
Yes.
Okay, so when we come back from the break, we're going to be concluding our discussion on wills and powers of attorney. If you have a question and you would like to send your video, it's +267 75 341 347. This is TDA Tele Radio, and we'll be back in just a moment. All right, if you just joined us, this is TDA Tele Radio, and this is Things That Matter with Dr. Unity Dow, and we're talking wills and power of attorney. Um, so this is our closing segment. We're going to keep it nice and short, and we have some questions that might have come through. The first one is, um, can I sell my house that I had put in the will for my child before I die, and the will still stands as it is, but then I've just sold the house and the child doesn't know what happens
You are absolutely within your rights to sell any part of your property while you're still alive. The fact that it's in a will does not stop you from dealing with it any way you want. So that's why it's important to frame your will very, very carefully so you don't have to change it every time that you sell a property or acquire property. Remember,
Yes.
you may also acquire new property. If you decide to name property and name people, there'll be property that is not um, assigned.
Yes.
So it's important to be as broad as possible when you do your will.
All right. Can I change my wife's will without anybody knowing?
Absolutely not. In fact, a joint will lapses upon divorce.
Okay.
Okay, so you may have a joint will, but if you divorce, it lapses.
Mm.
So yeah.
All right. And then another question that's come in is the appointed power of attorney has died. And what's the process of changing that person um, after they pass on?
You can make another one.
Okay, so you just go and start another new
Yes,
process.
or
Okay.
maybe the power of attorney they actually had in the event that they are unavailable and don't want to act. Then you name an alternative.
All right. And then the other question that's come in as well is why is it that middle children can't get anything?
Why is it?
Middle children can't get anything in Botswana?
Okay, actually, I did research on that topic a long time ago, and it may seem unfair,
Uh-huh.
but it used to make sense. I'll tell you why. If you have a minute.
Yes.
For example, you remember the culture then?
Yeah.
There was land. Land was not a problem. You didn't have to buy land. Okay? So it was you just went and got another stance and built your house.
Yeah.
So the expectation was this:
Yeah.
that children were married according to their place in the family.
Yes.
I remember I had a cousin who actually got married before his older brother. It was a big deal. So you were not allowed to marry before your older brother. So the expectation was that Moshe will get married, go. So and so will get married, go. You understand? So by the time the parents are about old, in the home, it's only left the youngest son anyways. So he was left, no, he wasn't even because basically he's left in the home because he's the last person still there. The other people have gone in and have their own homes.
Yeah.
So it made sense. The youngest female was given the field for a very good reason.
Yes.
In terms of customary law, when your mother, generally, men died first. That's still the case. He was survived by his wife. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that a lot. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So most, men were survived by their wives. So when a woman is old and unable to take care of herself, she went to live with her youngest daughter. Because remember, the woman who's now at her home is not her daughter; it's a daughter-in-law. It was not expected that a daughter-in-law can take care of their mother-in-law in old age. You understand? By that time, maybe she's now in her 30s. You understand? The old woman's maybe is now her 70s. She's got young children. So she would go to her own biological daughter. And then to feed her, she would use the field that she inherited.
Oh, yes, it's that.
So it was about obligations and responsibility. You understand? The oldest son got the cattle post because that's where Pegu, their family was there. Pegu mean the family, whatever, strengthening, I get at
Yes.
home. So Pegu nelo went home. So the oldest son now inherits the power of the family in a way. And then the cattle will be distributed amongst all the children. The boys will be given more. And there was a reason for that. Remember, they are uncles, maternal uncles, which means that when their sisters' children are getting married, the first cow comes from them. So it was about obligation and responsibility.
Okay.
So if you located into that economy and lifestyle, it made sense. It was a fair system. The problem is now the youngest boy wants to go now and register property in terms of statutory law in his name and mortgage it.
Yes.
You understand? Before, if your sister, your youngest born, if your sister divorced, they came home. Okay?
Yes.
Back to their home. Because that home became the family home, even though you were left in the home. So that it made a lot of sense.
So there was some
A lot of
thinking.
fairness.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of fairness to it. There
Mm.
was a whole lot of thinking behind it. It wasn't just because, hey, we choose this one on top and this one at the bottom. Sorry, cops. There was thinking behind it.
Yeah.
Uh, all right, let's see if we have any other questions that are coming in. Is there anyone who has joined us now? Currently, no, but thank you for joining us. For those that have been listening, and for those that have not, you can catch us Monday, 10:30.
10:30 every Monday.
Things
Things that
that
matter.
matter. Yes, with Dr. Unit Dow. Any parting words you want to share with us?
Um, Always frame your will to promote peace amongst those you leave behind, even those who were not so kind to you.
Mm.
If you don't, you are creating a war between the people you love and the one child you thought you were favoring. So
Yeah.
that's one I would say. Always.
And then you said always have a clever lawyer because they'll think beyond just one person.
That's correct. And always remember, we live complicated lives.
Yes.
Um, we live complicated lives. Clear the air by clear instructions.
One African question that is coming before we go. Is it true that the moment you start thinking of a will, it's almost taboo in the African sense that you are already projecting your death? Or is that the way to put it? Like there's always a fear of the moment you start thinking of a will, you're already thinking of your own death.
I mean, people are afraid to talk about death. They're
Yeah.
afraid to accept that we are going to die. I mean, like, we hope that's when you are 100,
Yeah.
but it may be tomorrow, it may be next week, it may be when you are 80 or 90. But there is one true fact: we are going to pass on.
Yes.
Okay. And you cannot influence when you're going to pass on by giving instructions to how your property is going to be distributed. If you love them,
Yes.
leave clear instructions.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm just thinking it's easier for doctors and lawyers to speak of these things without emotion, but for us to just start saying that, I know even people who are scared to have a funeral plan or a
Mhm.
life insurance kind of thing because they say do not do such things because you're already I don't
Mhm.
know, you are speaking death into existence,
Mhm.
but
But the ones who actually complicate things are young people
yeah.
with property, and they live will, because I mean they've got siblings who fight. They've got, you
Yes.
understand. So at least you've got children, you've got a spouse. But yeah, I mean, it's just
Perhaps.
if you want, if you love them, leave clear instructions.
What is the best age to start thinking of having a will?
When you start working.
When you start working.
Hmm.
So your first job should already be, H, where's my will?
Hmm.
Thank you for joining us. This is Things That Matter with Dr. Unity Dow. Join us again next Monday.
Thank you.
All right.
See.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Oh,
You're listening to TDO Tele Radio. Coming next is Demi Marks.